what's up guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to culture shock in America as an international student abroad. Cornell University. I think this is just basically someone who's travelled to the US for university, and I guess the culture shocks that they faced, good or bad, I guess it will be what we're going to see in this video. But yeah, hopefully going to enjoy. I've done a few reactions like this before and I've found them pretty fascinating, and yeah, we're here with another one, but hopefully going to enjoy, and let's just see what she has to say.
It's not acceptable really to just show up that late without any excuse. Whereas in the Philippines, like bro, people are just working all the time. My family will be like, can you not?
Oh, she's American. Wait, culture shock in America as an international student abroad. She sounds American to me.
Just be a bit flexible. Today's video is a highly requested, very fun one. We're going to talk about the culture shocks of America. If you're new to my channel, aloha, I'm Katie. I am an international student from the Philippines studying abroad at
She's from the Philippines. She sounds so American to me. Okay, I'm very confused.
Cornell University. Technically, I'm in the Philippines right now because of COVID and I'm continuing remotely, but I've had 2 years living in America as a student. There are many things that have shocked me.
So is she saying she's lived in the US for 2 years of her whole life and she sounds like this? To me, she sounds American. I've had this conversation before about how I feel like people sound American when they just learn English from other countries. Some people disagreed, which is fair enough. I don't actually have any basis from what I'm saying. But now I'm hearing this and I'm thinking that I'm right, you know, but no, seriously, I'm very confused.
That have been hard to adjust to, that have been hard to relate to some of my friends in America because I grew up so differently. The first thing is small talk and friendliness. Like, wow. People in America are so friendly. Like when you're in the elevator, you will say nothing the entire elevator ride up, but then when they go to leave, they'll say good evening, or they'll acknowledge your presence. Whereas here, I have never said that to anybody. So when we're at a restaurant or buying something, I've noticed that people in America make it an effort to have a small conversation, to talk to you, ask like, how are you doing, blah blah blah. It's like very down to business. In my experience here in the Philippines, it's just like put in your order, say thank you, do all the polite things, but no extra conversation after that. The time in America is...
It is interesting how so many people say that. Like, everyone seems to say that, so it's obviously true.
So valuable though. It is counted on the dot. If you have a meeting at 4 p.m. and you show up 5 minutes late, like you better give a heads up ahead of time. Like it's not acceptable really to just show up that late without any excuse, because it's kind of like a big sign that's like, I don't care about your time if you show up that late. Whereas in the Philippines, like bro, a dinner will be scheduled at 7 p.m. but it won't start till 9 p.m. and it's normal.
That's a bit extreme though.
Like no one will complain, they'll just be like haha for like, you know, time, whatever. It has been a big shock to me because I come back home every winter and summer and I have to adapt. When I'm in America, I'm like, okay, like we'll agree on this time, let's do it, okay? And then I'll come back home to the Philippines and I'll expect people to do that, and they'll be like, why are you so in a rush all the time? Mostly my family will be like, can you not just be a bit flexible? And it's like looked down upon when I'm being really fussy about my time. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, time is chill, I should be a bit more flexible. And I don't know, they're good for different worlds. I feel like I'm constantly being tugged by these two worlds, because on one hand I'm like, yes, when I'm in that mindset of let's do stuff, let's get stuff done, then timing matters. Also because my schedule is so packed back to back. In America, it's like planned by the hour, whereas in the Philippines, it's like planned by the day. Like I'll have a few goals for the day, and then it doesn't matter if, you know, there are some changes spontaneously here and there, but it's very chill. This one's interesting, but stranger danger. Let's say I want to meet up with a friend, or like go on a coffee chat with someone just to learn about their projects, or just, I don't know, network. I probably would not do that in the Philippines. Like I would not just meet someone online and then agree to meet them in person, where
Fair enough. That's very fair. Is that not as common as in the US? Do you just sort of plan to meet someone after just talking to them about something online? Is this what she's saying? Or like, I guess this is sort of what she's hinting at, but maybe more of like a civilized thing. I don't really know, because it's a weird one. I don't think most people just randomly meet someone online. Actually, no, you would. Like, I guess you've got dating apps and stuff, but she's not talking about dating.
I really would not do that in the Philippines. Like, I would not just meet someone online and then agree to meet them in person, whereas in the States, I'm more open to do that. I'm in a college campus though, so it's a bit safer in that setting. But even like people will reach out to me on LinkedIn And as long as I see mutual friends, like I would be down to go on a call with them. But when that happens to me in the Philippines, I'm a bit more cautious. I think it's just when you grow up in two different places, your brain kind of adapts to that environment and it also adapts to that culture. So I've noticed that about me. This is one of my favorite ones, political correctness. I had zero sense of being PC in the Philippines, really. It's like nothing compared to what I've learned in America, and I get why. It's because America is so diverse. You really have people from all over the world, whereas in the Philippines we are pretty homogenous, like mostly Filipino, Asian. We kind of get the culture, so we're a bit more open to say things that could be offensive. And I know it sounds a bit bad, but it really is just a cultural thing. It's very lighthearted. We make fun of it. One example is in the Philippines, people are much more comfortable at like poking at your physical appearance, or at least for me, it's like people will very much call me out and say whether I'm skinny, whether I've gained weight. I think these issues exist in both countries, but the way that it's handled in America is definitely more sensitive. Like I would not just like tell my friend she gained weight. I would probably ask her more like from a side kind of view, like how have you been doing with, you know, eating, like have you been feeling healthy, like are you okay? I would not like just jump straight into it and be like, you gained weight. Whereas that happens to me all the time in the Philippines.
Wow.
And in addition to that, people have been very quick to just suggest things and be like, you have to eat more. And I'm like, I haven't even said a word and you're telling me to eat more, or like, okay. Let's talk about lifestyle. In America, there's a huge work-life separation. In the professional sense, it very much means like you have a 9-to-5 job, and after that point, like it is social life. They're very respectful of your time outside that working window that you set aside. Whereas in the Philippines, some people still work on Saturdays.
So that's interesting that she says this, because sometimes you hear the perspective of the US people are overworked and stuff, and you're hearing what she says now, and it's sort of not the opposite, but they actually have like the ability to just have the freedom to do whatever they want outside of work. I guess it just depends on person to person, or maybe just it shows that the Philippines is just even more extreme than the US.
And it's normal. It's more like lax or chill, where going overtime is a bit more common and it's a bit more graceful when it happens. But I feel like when it happens in America, people are more like strict about it, like, yo, this is overtime, by the way. On the opposite end, what I think is really interesting is there's also no work-life balance, at least in a college setting, in that people just work. Maybe it's also because I go to Cornell, and Cornell is pretty prestigious, and so people are just working all the time. Like literally they work nonstop. Even on Fridays they're at the library grinding, Saturday they're grinding, Sunday they're grinding. They just don't stop. In the Philippines, there's definitely a pause on the weekend, especially Sunday. Like Sunday is a family day. Nobody works on Sundays. It is weird.
Oh, so then she's sort of saying it's a bit different in this sense as well. So maybe the US is a lot more focused on work like this then.
If you call about work on Sundays, and even as I was growing up, you know, in high school, I always just reserved some time on Sunday for the family, whether we go out for lunch or just do some bonding activity. Sunday is always for the family, and I think that is tied into how the Philippines is a very religious country. We are 90% Catholic, 95% Christian, and so that kind of ties in with like Sunday is our rest and reset day. If nobody's ever told you, America is expensive and consumer culture is huge. The cost of living in America is way higher. Based on my research, the starting salary of a Filipino graduate here at a top school is like $5,000 compared to America.
5,000 is crazy, but then America's also going to be crazy in the opposite end of the spectrum, right?
Or at least Cornell statistics that I saw is 50,000.
Your starting salary, oh my god. What the fuck? Wow. That's a good, what, £40,000? Maybe a little bit under that. Bloody hell. For your starting salary, that is crazy.
That's 20 times. And even with that amount, like, people in America struggle with only earning that much, especially if they took out loans. It is just insane how big that gap is. Like, 20 times the amount. So let's start talking about financial goals. I have noticed among my friends in America that their goal is to start their career like as soon as possible. Like the reason they work so hard during college to get these internships is so they can immediately get full-time offers. They can be set in like New York or the Bay Area and get an apartment, move out of their parents' home. And it's almost looked down upon if you stay with your parents or like you're not able to find a job. Whereas for me, like, I grew up thinking that I would just live under the roof of my parents' house until I...
See, I've heard about this. And I think some parts of Europe like this as well, where you just sort of stay more so with the family, and I guess as they get older, you just sort of look after them, and then continues like that. And then I guess a lot of the Western countries just maybe it changed over time, or yeah, it's just interesting how the contrast is the cultural difference.
I found a husband or something. That's at least what my parents told me. Financing college. Many people in the States take out loans, they start working part-time jobs when they're in high school so that they can start paying for their education. Some parents do allocate funds for their child's education, but many of my friends I've noticed did not have that allocation, and so they have taken that responsibility to themselves.
I've got a question about this. So you have to pay for university in the UK, but you can get loans that cover it, and then say you don't ever get like a salary that's high enough to pay it off, you don't have to pay it off, or you pay it off small increments. And if you get a better salary, you pay a little bit more, and the better your salary, the more you pay off. So basically, you only really pay it off if you get a really good salary, and it still spreads out over time. But in the US, do Americans get student loans? Is that really probably not the best way to put it? So Americans take out student loans to help pay for college. Oh, so you still get loans. If you're an undergraduate, you can borrow a maximum of $12,000 per year. So it's very similar to the UK. If you're a graduate, you can borrow up to $20,000 each year. So how does it work? Wait. How does it work paying it back? Loan repayment. The median borrower of an outstanding student debt owed between $20,000 and $24,000. How do Americans... I say Americans, I mean it's not just... Actually, I guess it is Americans, because I don't think you can get student loan if you're not a citizen, right? How do Americans pay student loan off? Is it just the same system? It probably is, to be honest. The loan servicer calculates the monthly payment amount that will pay off the original loan amount plus all accrued interests after 120 equal payments. Why is it so hard to pay off? Interest. When you take out student loans, you don't just repay the exact sum borrowed. For example, if you take out $20,000 in student loans, you're generally going to end up spending more than $20,000 by the time your student debt is paid off. Oh, okay. Does UK student loan... I don't know how I'm reading it out. It does. Wait, let me just search... You know what, this is the last one. Because I am fascinated by this. I think it might just be the same system. In England, students graduate with an average student loan debt of over $54,000. Wait, so the UK is a lot worse. Wait, was it? The highest outstanding debt in the UK is more than £230. What? Okay, I don't know how true that is. Okay, I'm confused then, because a lot of people don't end up paying off, or they pay it off very small amounts at a time when they get a good salary. And you have to have a salary over £25,000 a year. Okay, damn. I mean, based off that, I think it actually might be worse in the UK, unless I'm missing something.
Pay off their loan and completely fund their education. Whereas for me, I'm very grateful that my parents had already allocated that for me. Like, my family cares so much about education, and that's why growing up too, they told me to just like study hard. Literally, like the goal is to just work hard, study hard, because education is the key to unlocking all those future opportunities. While I'm super grateful that I didn't have to worry about any debt, which by the way is a very unique problem in America, like the whole college debt situation, I noticed is very distinctive of America and is not as common in other countries, I've noticed. But the trade-off of that though is that it makes me financially dependent on my family. Growing up, I did not have the freedom to make decisions on my own because I didn't have a say over my money. It was very much like my parents provided for me. The dynamic was very much like I had to ask my parents. Like in any decision I was going to make, in whatever I wanted to do, I needed to ask my parents. Even if it didn't involve a financial transaction, I always had to go through them first. And so I think in my culture, money is a means to control. It is very easy to revoke any opportunity if you don't have the money, because reality is you need money to do things in life. You need it to survive. And the dynamic is just different in my culture because I looked up to my parents to always provide that, whereas I think in America, people grow up taking that responsibility on themselves earlier on. Now I'm starting to realize there are benefits to having that financial freedom, and I'm trying to be a bit smarter with money, but it has taken a big shift in my mindset to realize the pros and cons of being financially dependent. Also, on the note of education, I feel like the ability to study abroad is not just so I can go and study and learn, but it's also looked at as an investment. So I am an investment that my parents make to send me abroad with the expectation, with the
interesting way to put it, but fair enough.
Tide condition that,
especially in the US, I mean, the money that she can make in the US for them is endless.
I return home after and I help them. This is pretty common in Asian countries. I know I have friends in Singapore, in Malaysia, who are sponsored by their government, and their contract is you don't have to worry about tuition, like the government or a sponsor will take care of it, but you have to return home for like 5 years and work in the government or work for that company to kind of pay it off.
That's really fascinating. It makes sense, but that's really fascinating how they do it.
You don't have to worry about paying for your tuition, but you do have to worry about the next 5 years or whatever years you agree on to help that company. You know, you don't have that freedom of choosing which company you want to enable your future like in America, because the offer of education is often tied. This is super fascinating, and this might just be me, but the concept of retirement was very new to me. In America, I noticed there were a lot of jokes to my friends that they'd be like, oh, when can I just retire and live my dream life in a cottage or travel the world or whatever. And I've always wondered, like, why does it take your requirement to start doing those things? It seemed to me like retirement was this goal that so many people had, that many people would start saving towards. And for me, it seemed like life for your first 30, 50 years was work, and then it was fun for after you retired. It seemed like there was only life before retirement and life after retirement sometimes. I deadass thought, and I still think, that I will be working till the day I die. My reason for saving is not so I can live fine when I'm old, it's so I can start providing for my family. Now, I know having a retirement plan is definitely like a good idea.
I mean, I would love to retire. I'm not gonna lie. Family, when it comes, that's the focus. But before that, I've got other things to focus on.
I personally, though, grew up in a family where my grandparents are over 80 and they're still working. I think, though, there is more personal history behind it in
that's
that,
pretty insane.
You know, when they were young, they were struggling, they were poor, and so for them, money has so much value, and they have gained so much from working. They didn't even have a higher education or university degree, and so for them, they do everything in their power to make sure that they can continue providing for the next generations to come. We have a huge overseas working population. We call them overseas Filipino workers, but they move abroad and then they send remittances back to the country in order to help their families earn a living. And I believe 10% of our country's GDP comes from remittances.
Wow.
The beautiful thing that I've witnessed about this in my family is this amount of work, you know, every day is done not out of like bitterness, not out of like, oh, like I have to keep doing this. It's generally done out of love, because for them, if they are able to provide for their family, if they are able to see their family have food and shelter and opportunities that they never had, it brings them great joy to do that. It's just so beautiful, and it really makes me want to do the same for my own family in the future. Reunions is also...
See, that's a cultural thing as well, for sure. I think that's a very cool cultural thing, because it's probably changed a lot in the Western world, but she seems very set on that, and I guess that's just how the whole culture is. Like, the 10% of GDP being from basically overseas workers is wild to me. That is wild.
So another big thing, like there are huge families here in the Philippines. I feel like a big part of my social scene was just having reunions with my extended family. My weekends were never really mine to just chill or, you know, do the part-time job. I had some school obligations like volleyball tournaments, but aside from that, I always had to block out time in the weekend for family lunches and dinners. Now, just to summarize everything, I think there are three main themes that are very different for me in America versus the Philippines. But the first is the non-stop work culture. I have never worked so hard in my life. I've always worked hard, but in America...
Oh, she was... I think I got confused when she was talking about the lifestyle work. She said at the end, and I was like, okay, it makes sense. She sort of swapped it around, but maybe the whole time I was just because she said about how people in the US make time for like after 5 o'clock they'll make time to do stuff and all that, didn't she?
And among my friends, I feel like everybody is on the same wavelength as me, and so it kind of drives my energy too, and it's been exciting that way. But I think there's a fine line between burnout and overworking yourself, and that's a big problem I hear a lot about in America. The second is honestly the competitive culture. I think in America in general, like it is already such a strong country with a very talented workforce, and people, I feel, work so much to try to get a marginal difference in their growth. So I think if I took my work ethic in America and brought it to the Philippines, I would be able to go a lot farther in that metric. But the thing is, I don't feel that way in the Philippines. Like I don't feel like I have to be a workhorse. This might also be a Cornell specific thing, but I notice people are so pre-professional, and a lot of people are going for the same spots, the same big companies in like Wall Street or Silicon Valley, and so they work so hard to just like get in that like top 1% of the world. And you know, it's why I admire them too, is because they like work mad hard to be like in the best of the best. Whereas in the Philippines, because we're still a developing country, there's so much room everywhere to put your effort in. So I feel like we go from 0 to like 80% with the same amount of effort, just because there's so many opportunities in the Philippines. We call it like low-hanging fruit. People who usually study abroad in other countries and then return to their developing country back home see so many easy opportunities to grow their country because they just spent the past few years in a developed country, in like what a country should function like. I at least have been coming home and I've been realizing so many areas of growth in the Philippines that I could put my effort in and then make a lot of impact in, versus in the States it's kind of hard to find where I can do that without putting in like extra amount of effort compared to everyone who's already working so hard. I hope that makes sense. And the final thing is consumer culture. Looking back, I spent so much in America that I really didn't need to spend. I have been in my home since March 2020, and the only thing I've purchased online were resistance bands for $10. In America, it's like Black Friday. Every online store is having a discount, you know.
That's not just America now. I feel like that's spread. The UK is definitely the same. Probably not as extreme. I still think the US still wins that one because the US is just different level in terms of all that sort of stuff, but definitely spread to the UK for sure.
I know, but like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm being sold things left and right because there's Amazon, because the shipping services are so reliable. There's like no excuse not to spend. Whereas here in the Philippines, I might still order something online and then get something totally wrong. So it's kind of like there's more of a barrier for me to spend because the system isn't as refined yet. But also it's like I just don't need so many things. I have such a perfectly happy life here that I'm home without spending anything. I don't know why, but I kind of just woke up to that and I was like, why did I ever buy so much in the States? Like I never needed all of those things. This is a really fun, like cool fact about the Philippines. Starting from August, people start saving up so much money so that they can buy a lot for their friends and family in Christmas. They call it the Burr months because September, October, November, December, like basically a third of the year people are just saving money because they really plan to just spend all of it and gift it to people, and I think that's so sweet. Yeah, I love that about my country so much. Like it inspires me to want to save money very intentionally throughout the year so that I can spend it on other people and, you know, give more instead of buy, take for myself. Those were all my thoughts.
She's sweet. I mean, to be fair, it's nice how she talks about how she wants to do stuff for a country. That's a very good like view of it, to be honest. And also, she seemed very positive about the US. One difference I noticed was the way pets are treated. Many pets are pampered more in the US than children in my country. That's a good thing, though. I mean, should be shit. I mean, you gotta be nice to your pets. Come on. Never understood why Americans never finance their kids' education. So weird. I mean, it depends if you got the money or not. If you got the money, you probably will. From what my family's used to, I don't know what that sound was, by the way. My brother, who's at uni, doesn't have it financed. Like, yeah, unless you're from a rich family, that's not gonna happen. But that's how you gotta do. You gotta just make the most of what you can do. And at least, I guess, with student loans, you got some sort of opportunity. You're just screwed for the rest of your life, especially if you don't get a very high level job from it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts on this, and until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.